Welcome to Galactic Grandmother Heart to Heart. My special guest today is Michael Lee Hill. We have done a prior episode together where he really went into his background, how he got to where he is today, but we did not have time to talk about the subjects we're going to talk about today, and I'm very interested to get into that. Michael, for those of you that aren't familiar, is a musician, but he's also an Anunnaki messenger. He also has the name of Rainbow Warrior Eagle, which is an honorary and very special title given to him by a North American tribe. And he is an author of The Stellar Pathway. He is the inventor of some 432 technology given to him by the Anunnaki, which you can check out on his website. So, welcome, Michael. I'm so glad to see you today.
Well, thank you for having me. I always look forward to speaking with you.
Good. We had wanted to get in deeper to some topics about hidden
Mhm.
histories of the Anunnaki. And I am excited to hear the information that you have received regarding that. Can you just take it from there?
Sure. And thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, a lot of what I've learned from the Anunnaki themselves, there's a lot of misconceptions from the masses. So I think it's important to clear those up. And the first is the creation of Homo sapien. And a lot of people think that the Anunnaki went around just enslaving cultures, and that's not what happened at all. When their planet went through our part of the solar system, they would need they would take gold and powderize it and put it up into their atmosphere. Kind of sounds like chemtrails, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyhow, and then that would help protect and shield their planet from solar radiation. And they found that the Earth was plentiful in gold, which is kind of rare from what I understand in the whole metaverse. The amount of gold on this planet is tremendous. So as they would come through this part of the solar system, because that planet, which we call it Nibiru, which is an actual human word meaning those from the heavens that came from the earth. That's not what they call themselves. We call their planet Nibiru. That is an English word. Their word for their own planet is the Sa'ami, like three syllables. And the people of the Sa'ami are the Sa'amai. And the Sa'amai, when you translate that word into Western English, becomes Sam, which is interesting with the whole
Oh, yeah.
un- Uncle Sam. So the reason I'm telling you this is like I work with the reverse engineering division and the remote viewers of the NSA, and they never call them the Anunnaki. They call them the Sam because that's the accurate term. But anyhow,
Let me just ask you. So
mhm,
the Anunnaki's planet is what we would call Nibiru, and Sa'ami is their planet where they came from.
yes, that's
Okay.
their term for their own planet. Uh, Nibiru and Anunnaki are just human words for them.
Okay.
And but I still call them the Anunnaki because if I call them the Sam, no one's going to know what I'm talking about, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So what we find out is all of the solar systems are dual sun systems. Our dual partner of our star, our sun, burned out long ago. But as you know, black holes and when stars collapse, their mass remains. That planet is still trapped in its orbit around another star that's part of this system, but it's can't see it anymore. It's gone, but the mass still remains, and it takes 3,600 years to make that complete orbit. So it only comes back through our part of our solar system every 3,600 years. As they would go through this transit, they knew when they came through our part of the solar system was a lot of radiation. So particularly when they came back through our part of the system, they needed the gold to put into their atmosphere to shield them from the radiation. But also another side of this is they found out when they call it taking gold and bringing it into its atomic level size is called monatomic gold.
Oh, yeah.
That when you ingest it, a matter of fact, when I met them, the one that kind of took me under his wing and was kind of like my guide, he told me at that time there was no TV shows that had Loki, but he said his name was Loki. That was his magical name. I said, okay, I did at that time I didn't know what a Loki even was. He offered me a line. He said he put a line of monatomic gold in like the stretch of his hand right here, and he sniffed it and he asked me if I wanted to do a line. I'm like, wow, I've never been asked by the Anunnaki if I wanted to sniff a line of gold, but what the heck? Um, I'm an adventurous kind of fellow. So I did, and there was no buzz component to it. I don't do hard drugs anyhow. So they were here to mine gold. It was a do or die situation for them because without it, and when they put it up into their atmosphere with Anunnaki chemtrails, that helped protect their planet from the cold of deep outer space. It would help insulate their planet when it went back on its orbit to the other dark star that it's part of this system, as I said. So when they found out that there was massive amounts of gold on this planet, they started setting up mining operations here. But the only way to understand this, have you ever seen Interstellar, the
Yeah.
movie? They
No.
showed that time is relative. Remember how they'd be like at the top of a planet that had a strong magnetic field that when you went down to the surface, like 1 minute there would equal a month in orbit.
Oh,
And they said that what you need to realize is, have you ever heard of Einstein's twins paradox?
no.
I'll explain it to you because it's really fascinating. This is Albert Einstein. His math showed that if you had two identical twins and they both were on this planet, and one had his rocket ship and was going to go off into deep outer space and travel close to the speed of light. And they both had wristwatches, say they're atomic wristwatches,
Mhm.
and they're like very closely tied. If one brother went out and traveled at close to the speed of light for 5 years, turned around and returned back. So it was let's say 2.5 years, then 2.5 years back, a 5 year journey. When he returned, his twin brother would have died 500 years ago.
Oh,
And they said, this sounds batshit crazy, just like a lot of quantum physics do to us.
mhm.
But the truth of the matter is, they've had atomic clocks, and one gets put into a jet and one stays on the surface of the planet. And just at the increase of speed that a jet flies, when it returns, those atomic clocks are off a few milliseconds. So
Oh,
it's proven scientifically that this is accurate. But what you need to realize then is your travel rate of speed as you travel through the ether affects how you perceive time. So what was happening was when they came here to mine gold, they experienced time differently. And when they went to return back to Nibiru, their loved ones had aged differently. Some of them had passed. And this didn't fly well with the Anunnaki workers, the miners that were here. They started to protest. They started to go on strike. And, in many cultures, it's not a good idea to go on strike against the king of that planet. And so his name was Anu. They were preparing to come and bring military factions here to enforce them to keep working. It was getting hairy. And Enki of the Anunnaki, my fractal part of this, he said, listen, there's two parts of this. I'm going to tell you the most easiest thing to understand, and then we'll get into another reason this even happened.
okay.
Um, that With the mythology of Enki, Enki had a mother that was Pleiadian, not Anunnaki. So Enki was the firstborn of the king of the Anunnaki, who was partnered with a Pleiadian queen. Enki was the first half-blood ever born into their bloodline. A lot of people think the Anunnaki are one bloodline. It's not true. There's two bloodlines that run through the Anunnaki family tree. Because what happened was, for a good portion of my life, I was Prince Enki and groomed to become the next king. But when the Pleiadian queen and Anu, the king of the Anunnaki, severed that relationship, he took on an Anunnaki female wife. And with succession of kingship rules for their culture, a pureblood got the throne over a half-blood.
Mhm.
So the throne went to my brother, who was known as Enlil, or in the biblical Bible, he was known as Yahweh. But again, Yahweh, I must say, is not a name. People think it's the name of God. It's not. People think it's YHWH. That's not accurate either. It's YHYW because they're actually indicators, ancient Anunnaki Hebrew alphabet that actually denote frequency. For instance, in the original YHYW is actually C, G sharp, C, G. Those are the tones of creation. Those are the actual frequencies that all physical matter is created from. You know, a lot of people know the concept of light and sound. This is the mechanics of how light and sound creates physical reality. You need very specific frequencies, but not one specific frequency. A lot of people are hip now to the 432 frequency, but you need specific frequencies and specific combination, which is either a melody or a chord. I just revealed to the world what it is. I hope they told me I'm revealing too much to the world right now. I'm like, well, too bad. Anyhow, we can get into that. Why the question becomes, why did the king of the Anunnaki have a Pleiadian female as a partner? That's got to be an interesting story, don't you think?
Very
You
much
know, like
so. Yeah.
where's that story at? I can tell you it's one of the hardest stories in all the text to actually track down and find out the story of that. From what I understand, Homo sapien at that time, before we were modified, which a lot of people know the Anunnaki modified our genome, but before that, we were a Pleiadian soul carrier. We were the Pleiadian queen's children. Right there, it explains why she was so interested in what would be happening to us, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
But so what happened was they said, listen, now I'm going to have to intertwine the other story because when the Anunnaki was here to mine the gold, and they're called the Anunnaki heroes, and they're called heroes because to them is a death sentence coming here. Plus, they didn't like it. You know, back on their world, they lived very pampered, cozy lives. But when they came here and were doing minor work, they weren't, even though it was do or die, they know it was truly in being service to the whole. But once they started to realize that they would be severed from their loved ones, they started to revolt. And it was Enki that said, listen, because at the same point, the second misconception, they created the pole shift. That's nonsense, especially if you just read the Sumerian clay tablets. That's not what it says at all. It says the Anunnaki scientists, seeing that this planet, because it's off axis, right? It's what, 18% off straight up and down. It's at an angle. You know how heavy ice is. And when the ice caps reach maturity, they're already off axis. That ice cap is going to want to relocate to the equator. And it's catastrophic. You can't be on the surface when that happens because the whole crust slips, and it's called a pole shift. or crustal displacement. Actually, Albert Einstein did a preface for a book called The Path of the Pole by Charles Hapgood. And in it, he said it's just physics. The Earth is off axis. These things weigh massive amounts of weight. The actual pressure of that ice at the poles puts such force down that it fractures the stone, the rock layer underneath, and turns it into a lubricant. When the time comes, the whole crust of the earth slips from the pole to the equator. And if it happens in free fall, which it did last time, it only takes about 8 hours for
Wow.
the crust to slip. And the crust is only about 10, 12 miles deep. So it's not like the earth turns over, but it's almost like the skin of an orange slips around the inner pulp, if you
Oh,
follow.
yeah. Yeah.
So actually, what had happened was my race, because instead of the throne going to me, it went to my brother
Oh, wow.
Enlil, which we had a lot of brotherly love flow in this incarnation. He was incarnated as a gentleman, been on Ancient Aliens many times, known as Chief Golden Light Eagle. And people
Oh,
might think anytime you've seen Ancient Aliens and there's a Native American chief talking about petroglyphs and
uh-huh.
star symbols, that's him. And it's not, he led me into an ancient ceremony. And when I had made the right decisions, he said, Michael, I work with the seven lords of light and the seven lords of darkness. I'm the only one that sits in the middle of these two galactic councils of light and dark. And I'm the only one who holds a seat on both sides. I thought, well, that's interesting. Didn't really understand it. After that meeting, I came to understand that the Native American Indian cultures, I'm Seneca of the Iroquois, and the Cherokee as well knew of what his name was Chief Yahweh. And Chief Yahweh, we're talking way long before the Bible. He was known to be this chief who sat in the middle of two galactic councils of light and dark that they called the peace chiefs and the war chiefs. I'm like, wait a minute, this sounds pretty dang familiar. Because, Chief said seven lords of light, seven lords of darkness. In the idea of Chief Yahweh, which you'll find out the name Yahweh is in a lot of our Native American First Nations songs. So the next time he and I were together, man to man, eye to eye, I said, Chief, this is really awkward, but Spirit has led me to understand that you are Enlil, Yahweh, my brother. And he said, yes, I've done some pretty messed up things, which was kind of put me back. I'm like, I don't even know what to say to that. I just said, well, haven't we all? I never even asked him what messed up things he did because I probably don't want to know. But he said, I want you to know, Michael, that this is not the first time we've been incarnated into the same timeline. We've incarnated into the same incarnations many times, and the last time was not pleasant. I thought, oh God, what did I do? Um, and he said, but I now understand you've been only showing me my own darkness. Isn't that interesting? Because that
Oh,
side of the family was going to let mankind perish. And I said, they're not just slave labor. If first of all, judging mankind because that side of the family, and they're not wrong. That's one thing, man. I understand their point of view a lot better, and they understand my point of view because I proved them wrong. Because the only way that you can prove them wrong is by risking it all and saying, I will incarnate into the human genome. I will go under the veil just like anybody else and forget my heritage. I will put everything on a shelf. I will adopt the belief system of the mass consciousness, all the hopes, fears, dreams, and nightmares upon birth, just like we all do. It's where cellular memory comes from. It's just right upon birth, it's plugged into your DNA. And if one of us cannot be succumb and take a dark path, then anyone can because we're all one, right? And truly, that's what happened at the Sundance, at the ancient ceremony, is you're being vetted by those two councils of light and dark. And I can't tell you what I learned is he said the dark, it's all about self-inflicted suffering through your own free will. They have no dominion whatsoever over any of us unless you open the back door and allow them into your energy field.
Right.
So, with why the Nephilim is where we're getting to, Enki got the order from his brother that was now king that we're just going to let mankind perish. They knew the crust was going to slip. They didn't cause it. That's the major misconception. A lot of people will tell you the Anunnaki caused the pole shift because they wanted to kill the Nephilim. Not true at all. So natural occurrence, it'll happen in the future, and it's happened many times in the past. I'm talking about the crust displacement. So it said, told Enki, why let all this food go to waste, you know? And they said, you have power over the oceans. We want you to go out and remove all the fish, which was the major food source for humans at that time. And we're going to send them through the stargates back to Nibiru, we'll call it. And Enki's like, they're not going to have anything to eat. And they're like, we don't care. They're going to die anyhow. So, in their culture, if you get an order from the king to disobey it, well, they'll take your head. You know what I mean? It's like you don't disobey a direct order from the king. I went out and I was going to follow orders, and something came over me. I'm like, I can't do this. I view mankind as family because, getting back to mining gold, and with the heroes going on strike, well, Enki was like, well, there's no an indigenous life form on this planet that can help with the toil and labor of mining gold. At that time, mankind was grazing on all fours and drinking out of ditches, much like maybe a little bit more advanced chimpanzee. Enki didn't, he found himself not being able to follow the directions because when they updated human intelligence, this is not derogatory. All life forms go through these cycles of evolution from even simple cell to self aware. And just because the Pleiadian soul carrier was at a young evolutionary state of their evolution does not mean they wouldn't have become galactic, very advanced in their consciousness beings in the future. But the problem was the pole shift was coming. This end of the cycle was coming. So they said, what if we updated their DNA with our DNA? And Enki was told to use common Anunnaki DNA to start, put an accelerator pad on human evolution. Because you got to think, we went from being grazing on all fours and drinking from ditches to right out of Sumeria having full blown culture, having arithmetic, culture, music, timekeeping. That's a huge jump in
Mm-hmm.
awareness. But what hit me is that caused a severe problem because mankind gained so much evolutionary leap in their consciousness without ever doing any shadow work. Usually, in a natural environment, to reach higher states of evolution, you have to weed the lower vibratory thinking out of your belief system.
Mm-hmm.
Mankind never got the chance. So, what had happened was Enki viewed us as family because he used his own DNA instead of commonplace Anunnaki DNA, which went against the rules right off the bat. That's not what he was told to do. But because of this, he viewed mankind as family. So instead of removing the fish, he went to his mother's side, the Pleiadian side, and said, is there anything that can be done? My family is going to let this precious race just die. And without even lifting a finger to help, because it was said Enlil even hated the sound that we made. Like when us humans made love, he's like, these are noisy freaking creatures. I don't like them. And in his view, We always give our energy away to illusionary outside sources. That shit is not allowed in higher realms of consciousness. If
Mm.
you evolve in, like right now, at least there's a time lag between the thought and the manifestation of thought. Well, if you evolve into a higher realm that there is no time lag, you have no time to change your mind. Like right now, and what I learned is that time lag between thought and manifestation is tied to the Earth's magnetic field. The stronger the magnetic field, the more time you got to change your mind. So, say my buddy Tom, I thought he'd wrong me. I'm like, that Tom, I hope he gets sick, And I threw out some negative thought forms. Let's say right at that time, there's a 2 day period between thought and manifestation. The next day, I realized I was wrong. I'm like, hey, he's a pretty nice dude. I think it was me that took on a negative thinking, and I had time to change my mind, right? And when the time between the thought and the manifestation of thought, they have to have a handshake, a energetic signature handshake. If they don't match, it doesn't manifest. But if you make it to the time we are now in almost zero magnetic field, your thoughts are being manifest almost instantly, and you have no time to change your mind. That is why it's so important to do your spiritual homework and weed the fear and doubt and nonsense out, hopefully in previous incarnations, because once you arrive in this time period, if you've not done your spiritual homework, it's not going to end well. And if somehow you do sneak through the proverbial Stargate and you still have lower vibratory thinking and you abuse your mental energy, you abuse your power over others, over yourself, and over your environment, it doesn't end well. You just get a do-over, you get kicked back, you'll manifest your darkest fear. What had happened was Enki did not listen. And he went to the Pleiadian queen, said, isn't there anything that can be done? My race is going to let this precious race that has so much potential, if they weren't treated as slave labor. That's what I told them as well. I said, I think you judging mankind with us in an economic slavery system is nonsense. You've tied our hands behind our back and put us into fight or flight and expecting good behavior. It doesn't work that way. So they listened to me, by the way. They said, this is the first time in the history, long history, that mankind just entered a new cycle without any rules. And Enlil is not happy about this, by the way. We were all together. I'm talking in the physical, we're in a room. There's about 10 of us there. And he says, this is the first time mankind will ever enter a cycle, and all sides are going to the sidelines. And he said, this is the first time we'll enter a new cycle for mankind with no rules. And he looked right at me. He said, because rules are control, right, Michael? Kind of with a lot of venom in his voice, like you have no idea what you've done. And I look out in the world, I'm not so sure he was wrong. I'm just to a point, I'm like, well, we'll never know unless you let mankind become free range humans, so to speak. The Pleiadians said, well, let us see what's going on here. And they said, if we do save mankind from this deluge, what became known as the Biblical Ark story, which we can get into that. Remind me to get
Okay.
back to that, because that's another misconception. But even if we do save this precious race of yours, they used what they call future sight. And 99 out of 100 timelines, we self imploded because we didn't do the shadow work that we would have had the
Oh.
chance to do. We just gained in material science and technology way faster than we grew spiritually. And we would just make weapons and aim the weapons at ourselves, and we would self implode. And so the Pleiadian higher up council of the Pleiadians said, why even save them if they're just going to self implode anyhow? So that's why they said, well, what if we started to incarnate into the human genome to help guide this behind the scenes, so to speak? And that's where the Nephilim came from, because, of course, Enki's side says, Heck yeah, we will try to come and steer this into the light and teach them things that uplift the human soul, knowledge of light and sound, of sacred geometry, of music, poetry. They said the human soul can only be seen through exposition. I said, what the hell is exposition? He said, it's an expo. It's an expo of creative output. I thought, how beautiful. It's so true. If you think about it, the human soul will never be seen through economic systems and politics. It's not going to be there. The
Mm,
only way the human soul can be seen is through creative
mm,
outflow.
mhm.
So that's the creation of the Nephilim, was to create, once they tried to incarnate into the human genome. I'm talking about the Anunnaki. The human genome at that time did not have enough electrical capacitance to hold the incoming energetic signature of an Anunnaki. They would spontaneously combust and burst into flames. And as much as you want to help humanity, coming here and bursting into flames doesn't help much. You know what I mean? So they said, well, what can be done? Because this isn't working. They said, what if we make another offshoot of the human genome that has more electrical capacitance available, like a pool of it? And that's where they introduced an unknown virus into the human brain that tricks the human brain into releasing an enzyme called creatine kinase. We got into this in the last one, didn't we?
I don't know.
CK, or creatine kinase, is released by the human brain, and everyone's brains releases the normal amounts are 25 parts per liter of blood of CK. But if you've had a heart attack or you've ripped a muscle, your brain increases that amount to about 250 to 300 parts per liter tops. To the more CK you have running through your blood, the more electricity at a cellular level you're holding. You could think of that as chi
Oh,
or
yeah.
prana or life force. And it said a lot of our bloodline, because that you need to know that's exactly what the History Channel and the Harvard professor revealed, that most people's creatine kinase levels are at 25 parts per liter of blood. What the Harvard professor found and revealed on the History Channel was they had mine at 2,100.
Wow.
And so that's why I was brought into the remote viewers and the reverse engineering division. They said there's over, at that point, I think about 211 members of the secretive organization. 12 members of that 211 have my bloodline. They said my numbers of 2,100 would put me in about the middle of those 12, the lowest being in the 1,100 range. The highest was 12,000. And they told me that individual got hit by a particle beam weapon and was pretty much able to get up and shrug himself off and walk away, meaning not most people. I guess he almost had the ability to self heal,
Wow.
24/7. I do not have that ability. I do run awful hot though. I've had people standing next to me at a Star Knowledge conference. They're like, good Lord, man. You're like a freaking nuclear furnace.
Can I go
Uh,
back and clear up some timelines for me?
yes, please.
The Anunnaki saw in the future that there was going to be a catastrophe that would wipe out humans.
Yes.
But even though they saw that, they needed the humans for workforce to mine the gold, correct? And they went ahead and decided to contribute some of their DNA to the humans so that they would be a better workforce for them. Is that
Yeah, you'd be able to actually communicate. Like I said, no matter how much you want to help mankind, even right now, see if you can get a chimpanzee to help you mine gold.
right?
I hate to make light of it,
So
but that is truly,
then, when they saw that it was imminent that the catastrophe would take place, they were just going to take the fish off planet and let the humans die.
started. Hmm.
And Enki went to his mother, the Palladian queen, and said, is there anything we can do? Now, Enki had already contributed his royal DNA to the humans, correct? Which was
Yep.
part Anunnaki and part Palladian, which would have been a great up level to the humans to begin with. And then Enki went to the Palladian Queen. And what happened after that?
Well, the whole idea of creating an offshoot of the human genome, which became known as the Nephilim,
Mm-hmm.
was created. And that involves the increase of creatine kinase to create a human genome that can accept that incoming energetic signature of an incoming Anunnaki
Okay.
energy. Yep.
Uh, And that was created by the Palladians then, and
Yes.
and then contributed to the genome.
Yeah, because you got to know, Enlil was fine with us being extinct. You know, it's like they're self-destructive anyhow, and I don't like them. This was his thought. So he was cool with that. So interestingly enough, here's another misconception, and it's a big mystery with the Anunnaki. First of all, nothing will ever be understood unless you understand who Galzu, Galzu, was. We'll get back to that because it's very important. But Galzu, first of all, another misconception that the Anunnaki viewed themselves as gods. That's
Mhm.
not true because Galzu was a representative from all that is. He was high Pleiadian. And when Galzu came down, according to the Sumerian clay tablets, when Galzu came, Anu, Enlil, and Enki sat their asses down and took counsel from Galzu. So
Mm.
they knew they weren't the top of the galactic totem pole of intelligence. They
Mhm.
knew Galzu was much higher level of information. So what had happened was Enlil receives a scroll from the king of the Anunnaki stating, "We're really sorry, but you're not going to be able to return to the home planet." And they were informed about the time dilation issue
Mhm.
and said, "Sorry, you're going to have to live your time out there because, well, Enlil was furious. They wanted to come home. And now he
Mhm.
finds out not only do I hate these humans, and not only do I hate being here, but now I can't leave." You can imagine it didn't sit well with him. So after the pole shift happens, well, can you imagine when Enlil sees that humans survived? Was not happy.
Let me ask you about Glazoo, though. Inley and Enki both took counsel from him.
The actual man, you're good. Um, this gets right into the arc.
Inley found out he was going to have to stay on Earth, right?
Mhm.
And then Enki, what kind of counsel did he get from Glazoo?
Oh, it was actual how to survive. And he told them in the Sumerian clay tablets, it says that Galzu came to Enki in his dream state and had a lucid vision dream state and told him how to create the ark and the dimensions of the ark. And most importantly in this is Galzu said to survive the incoming waves of destruction,
Mhm.
it wasn't a ship. It had to be more like a submarine or football that could be tumbled over in
Uh-huh.
these waves and not get destroyed by these crashing waves. And you're going to find out this is all just an analogy, which I never knew. He said that the way you'll know if you've done the job correctly is from within it. If you're inside, once it's built, if you could see any sunlight coming in, you failed. It's that simple. Your vessel needs to be sealed up tight so nothing from the outside can get in. So that's what Galzu told Enki. And then Enki gave the instructions to his son that became Noah in the Bible,
Uh-huh.
Zajusha, in the ancient Anunnaki name.
How did Noah construct
Ah,
this?
thank you. It's not what you think. Because how I even pieced this together is when I met the Anunnaki in the flesh in 2008, Loki said to survive what's coming, if you can barricade yourself into an apartment or your garage, man cave, or whatever, we can put a holographic reality around you.
Mm-hmm.
And it said, put up newspapers over the windows, or if you can, put blinds up over the windows. And it said, if you've sealed up all the windows and you can see any sunlight coming in, you failed. At that time, I didn't know about the story. It's all coming together. And now I realize it's the exact same spiritual teaching. One thousands of years ago, it shows up, and one was given to me in 2008. And it's your brain, man. It's your arc is your mind. And it
Mm-hmm.
has to be sealed up tight because one other key to this is I was told once you put up blinds, if you get distracted or you are tricked into peeking out the blinds, you will see human behavior and things happening in the outside world that would drive any human being insane. Don't peek out the blinds, which is an interesting thing because that whole time period of my dark night of the soul, for 3 days, I didn't peek out the blinds. I didn't understand at that point. It was a metaphor for my mind. I really took it like I thought if I peeked out the blinds, I would be under an ocean and it would have been a pole shift, if you get what I'm saying.
So our energy field, we have to really be masters of our energy field, and we cannot allow low frequency. This is why the shadow work is so
Yes,
important. We
yes,
need to clear out the low frequencies within our physical cells and within our energetic bodies so that we can embody our higher consciousness and be sealed off to the low frequencies.
exactly. It's yes.
Okay.
Which is a whole different telling of the Ark story, don't you think? It's nothing. It's nothing
Yes,
to do
yeah.
with. And I thought how profound that the exact same spiritual story was given to Galzu to Enki, and then it was given to me this time around. Even though at first I didn't understand it, but yes, it's so important. Then you know, and actually, when Enlil I passed the vetting of the seven lords in the light and seven lords of darkness. And he said, all of us ascended masters had to learn to become sovereign the way you have, Michael. He said that all institutions of this world, whether it be governmental or religion or school or even like music, there's cliques. And if you're not careful, there's large whirlpools, vortexes of energy of both light and dark. But since mankind has a lot of darkness in their mass biofield right now, more than likely it's going to be negative. And if you get succumbed by keeping up with the Joneses or those all fears, fear of abandonment, fear of betrayal,
Hmm.
peer pressure, it's very easy, unless you've learned to stand in your sovereignty, to give your I am away to illusionary outside sources. And you'll get sucked into these whirlpools. And he said all of us ascended masters had to learn. He called it becoming sovereign,
Hmm.
um, which I heard there's a whole coded term called becoming the sovereign integral. You know, integral is understanding you are part of the whole. There's no getting out of it, right? We
Right,
all are. But you have to become sovereign. You have to become sealed up tight within your own vessel,
right.
and which is exactly what they're communicating to me.
I have gotten so much understanding out of what you've explained to us today that it's just amazing. You've really filled in the history that we all need to know, and it's really important.
I love
Okay.
talking with you know how very rarely in my walk of life here, only thing people are interested in is what the Cleveland Browns and the Cleveland Guardians are doing. I'm so not interested. So this
Right.
is such a pleasure for me
Uh,
to be able to speak with you.
Michael, you are a fountain of information. This is the best background that I've heard about the whole Enlil Enki history, and it
I hate
really
to
makes so
I
much
hate
sense.
Yes, I hate to do this, but his name is Enlil.
Enlil. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Enlil.
it's all good. And by the way, those are not names, they're titles. En means Lord or ambassador.
Oh,
Kai means earth. Lil means sky. So it's the Lord of the sky and Lord of the earth. And this is interesting because, they removed my memory blocks. And I
and
now know many names and titles of who I've been. But it was interesting. They told me once we remove your memory blocks, a lot of these past lives are going to flow back into you. And first of all, don't let hierarchy come into this. When you understand we've all been villains and I always try to be the good guy in the story. I will try to
so
say, but
we are going to bring this episode to an end, but we are going to be coming back with another episode about hidden histories and other important topics that Michael can fill us in on. So thank you so much for your time, Michael. I really
thank you for
appreciate
the
it.
opportunity.